Hey, good morning. Good morning. Yes, this is a rare Monday. Monday uh catch up stream covering things from Friday because Saturday and Sunday. Yes, I am actually awake and functional. I was up and made breakfast for the wife this morning before she left for work. Got her made her some bacon and venison sausage, 2 eggs over easy, toast with butter and peach preserves. She went out to work this morning with a full belly, ready to take on the world. I just sort of kept myself back to the bacon and venison sausage and an egg over easy because obviously I don't need to take on the world like she needs to take it on. But I want to welcome everybody to the stream, whether you get in here now or later on, doesn't matter. Sooner or later, people will eventually come finding their way on in, and that be always a good thing. But where am I going to start with this today? This has been there has been so much stuff, one way or another, that has just absolutely just let's start off with something easy and light, okay? Don Lemon, the idiot of the day. Okay, Don Lemon. The idiot of the year, as far as I'm concerned. He uh, he caused some problems here this week. He was talking about Nikki Haley, and well, he said that she was past her prime because, well, according to Google, women are in their primes in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And poor old Nikki Haley, well, she's a little bit over her 40s, so she's creeping up on that past that prime, you know. Well, when he opened his big mouth and said this, now remember, he used to have his own show in the evening, and he could be the only one on camera, the only one on the stage when he said this kind of crap. But now he's sharing the spotlight with two other women and worse, two other liberal white women. And we all know that white liberal women are really just, uh, there's very few groups of people that overtake liberal white women as far as being so easily offended on behalf of others. And if you offend them on their own behalf, oh my God, all hell's going to be raised. And I'm actually surprised that they did not. They really held up to some professionalism. Morning, Neil. They really held up some professionalism to Lemon here when he opened his trap. But privately, yeah, they're trashing him for having a colossal ego and believe he's plotting to jump ship. Diva, as CNN's ratings continue to plunge rock bottom, Diva Lamont has refused to accept any blame. News anchor, age 56, has been moody ever since the new network CEO, Chris Light, bumped him from his 10 p.m. primetime gig to co host CNN This Morning with Poppy Harlow and Caitlin Collins. A move that sources claim he saw and everybody else saw as a total downgrade. I mean, come on. You have your own show. You control your show. Then all of a sudden, and this is a gay black man controlling his own show. Then all of a sudden, we're taking away your 10 p.m. Eastern slot, moving you to a 7 a.m. Saturday morning slot with two women and two white women, and most likely two straight white women. Yeah, that is really a serious downgrade. He has a colossal ego, and he's the kind of person who goes around saying that he's not going to take the fall for his show flopping. It's not his fault, and the network's tanking. They shouldn't have pushed him out of his primetime slot. The ratings are way down. The new boss is implementing tough new rules, and no one is happy. All these people were pampered with perks and pats on the back until now, all of a sudden, Dawn, Wolf, and others have pointed, yikes, we're in trouble. So, yeah. Okay, let's listen to this.
Politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that politicians aren't in their prime.
You need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
What the facts are.
Yes. I mean, could you not just see them women? Hey, Sean. Could you not see all them women just wanting to scratch his eyes out? I mean, seriously, just like, hey, especially, I don't know. Is this Poppy over here on the blonde? Is that Poppy or is that Caitlin? I don't know. I don't watch this stupid show. Don't know, don't care. But yeah, he's as tensions build, Lemon reportedly keeps ripping at his 30-year-old co-host Collins off camera, who reported he's still livid after reducing her to tears when she interrupted him during a show last December. Wow. He's still mad when he tore her into tears? Oh, man. Yeah, I hate to think what she's like. Cast crew been walking around on eggshells since Dawn said in joke, well, wait a minute. Since Dawn since said a source who noted he's also clashed with on-air Harlow and tried to pass it off as a joke. Dawn quickly issued an apology. Yeah, that was a half-assed apology. Meanwhile, Lemon and others know they're on the chopping block if things don't improve, and he's scrambling to find another gig before the axe falls. Don still thinks very high of himself, and he's continuing to put out feelers elsewhere, though it's going to be a tough sell. Nobody's going to want Don or any of his miserable co-workers. Don, Lemon, I really hope that he's done. I really do. He is far from... Diva barely begins to describe the way this guy is. All right. He has been a know-it-all for as long as he's been on the air. He's he's told everybody that he's the only one that knows what's going on. And he is. And then, of course, except for when women, then, it's not the he that says that, it's Google. Blame it on Google there, Don Lemon, And let's see. There was something. What was that other? You see, CNN here is being the source for two. I'm trying to group. I've got another story out of CNN, which It's not as bad as the Don Lemon thing, but it's still a fun story here. Oh, Neil, I don't want him hurt, and I hope that he has been uh I hope he's been saving, investing quite a bit of his millions of dollars that he's earned over the years being a fair-haired child at CNN. Wait a minute, why is Dick Van Dyke trending right now? Did Dick Van Dyke die? Okay, no, it's not showing him. No, 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 no. Okay, go. Oh, because he was on the mask. Uh, okay, he was on the Masked Singer. He was the gnome, and he's out walking around this. Okay, yeah. Uh, yeah. Okay, so he's just basically showing that he at 96, 97 years old is still full of fun and kipper and everything else this morning. That's great. I tell you, Dick Van Dyke, he is, I mean, he's one of those actors I grew up watching and loving most of my life. But anyway, uh, my man earnings. Okay. Don Lemon makes $1,730,000 a year. All right. So I hope he's been investing a million of that every year. I hope he truly hope the man has been investing $1 million a year for as long as he's been as long as possible. Hey, morning, Data. Uh, no, I missed that. He actually praised Trump for doing what he said he was going to do. Nah, Trump did what he promised. Okay, let's see here. No, Donald's most okay. So let me see here. Come down here. Da da da. And question his claim as okay. Oh, so that was Poppy. The blonde is Poppy. Okay, hey, I got that right. Okay, that stupid comment. That's stupid, stupid. Levin compares Trump supporters to KKK members and Nazis. Defended Antifa. Stupid invokes Trump while discussing Hitler. Okay. I didn't mean to compare Hitler to the president, but it was an artful. Yeah, you mean you compared the president to Hitler? You know. Anyway, now if Lemon ever said anything nice about Trump, I would be surprised. Okay, great. If you can find that data, uh, let me know. I'd be real interested in that. Uh, Shut that volume off. Okay, yeah, just making certain that you did have that you could post a link if you were there. Okay, we've got English professor here in Florida that seems to be in a little bit of trouble. Here we go. English professor in Florida says university is reviewing his employment following complaint over racial justice unit. Okay. And why, how have I lost my audio here all of a sudden? How have I lost my audio? No, that's still working. Check my stream yards. Okay. All right. Well, there we go. All right. Now I got it back. Being my own producer, just like others, what the hey. All right. An English professor at Florida's Palm Beach Atlantic University says his job is under review when his employer told him they received a complaint he's indoctrinating students. The racial justice unit is what got me in hot water. Jocko had been teaching a unit on racial justice in classes for many years without complaints until his provost and dean said Wednesday they need to talk to him privately. Now this is a private university, so he doesn't get tenure or any other kind of real protections. Um, a parent complained about it. The PBA is a private Christian university, and discontinuance of employment can occur at any time without cause at the discretion of PBA. The institution does not offer tenure. The review process for employment decisions regarding senior faculty. Okay, the review process for employment, yada yada. Describe what tenure is. All right. So what had happened was he is an English professor. He teaches the English language. So why would he need a racial justice program? So that led me into because I just can't square this circle. Why would anybody, why would a college or high school or any other educational system need to have an have their English class being um, having a racial justice. I mean, racial justice has nothing to do with English. I mean, I don't see it. I honestly don't see how that's a thing. Hey, Green Badger, how you doing this morning? So I went and did a little looking on it, and I found this, and this is from the George Lucas Education Foundation, Edutopia, developing a social justice unit in English language arts. This is for high school. This rigorous standards aligned narrative combines classic literature and contemporary social issues. Social issues should not be taught in an English class. You're teaching today's social issues are not part of an English class. You're teaching what was then. Okay. Now, I feel fortunate that I had a teacher who lets us talk about racism and other social justice issues in his class. He taught us terms and helped develop the language to talk and address racial inequity. Not racial inequality, inequity. And we all know there is a difference. And Green Badger, why have I not? Let me fix this real quick here for you. Why have I not made you that? Okay. All right. Back to this. The words from Joshua, one of my formal students, describes the defining experience in his school life and speak to the power of the social justice education, which the book Teaching for Diversity and Social Justice describes as a pedagogical approach that teaches skills for exploring how systems of oppression operate at individual, institutional, and structural levels. As a social justice educator, I work to help students develop awareness, knowledge, process, identity, and respond to and redress inequity in their communities. This is being put out there to schools across the country, not just schools here in one area or anywhere else. They're everywhere across the country that this is being taught. And there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. I'm leading into a whole thing here. Teachers cannot dive into these lessons without preparing students. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I had my students, and remember, we're talking about in 20, okay, this is grade 9, freshman. Curriculum expectation, the students write a fictional narrative essay. I had my students engage in a counter storytelling, a concept grounded in critical race theory, to use the power of the narrative to counter and disrupt stereotypes and bias against marginalized groups. Teachers cannot dive into these lessons without preparing students. They are grooming the students. This isn't. And this article is from 2020. This is a 2-year-old article. I introduced them to discussions protocol created by Glenn Singleton, which he describes as courageous conversations about race. This is for an English class to establish ground rules for productive discussions about difficult, sensitive social justice topics. Stay engaged, experience discomfort, speak your truth, not the truth, your truth. Expect and accept non-closure. I work to create a classroom culture of relational trust and provide students with basic tools they need to engage in lessons about inequity, not inequality, inequity, and injustice. I noted that several of the curricular anchor texts, To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, The House on Mango Street, center on the experiences of BIPOC people living in poverty differently and differently abled people. All right. Now, To Kill a Mockingbird, of Mice and Men, I'm not as familiar with his Mice and Men as I should be. The House on Mango Street, I haven't read that at all. But To Kill a Mockingbird, it is about a white lawyer and his family defending a black man falsely accused of a crime. And the whole town lives in poverty, including this lawyer. This lawyer accepts barter for his trade. Chickens, eggs, meat, bread. That's how he gets his food, is by bartering out his own practice. So, I don't want, this whole idea that this is strictly about BIPOC people living in poverty. It's about everybody in this community living in poverty, in the poverty of the time period. To prepare my students, I build background knowledge and expose them to the concepts of diversity, prejudice, bias, discrimination, privilege, and of course, who's the only people that have privilege? Whites. And who has the most privilege? White men. I don't even need to know what this man teaches or to read it, and I know what they're talking about. I know what he is talking. I know who he's going to claim. And systems of oppression. And I still want somebody, anybody, to show me a single law on the books, rule or regulation by any government entity that gives preference to whites or white men. I want them to do this. There is one that's been pointed out to me a half a dozen or so times, and I it's to the point now I say this is a given. Yes, men can walk around without a shirt on. Men can walk around bare chested almost anywhere in the country and not get written up for indecent exposure. Okay? Yes, we know that's a thing. Sorry, ladies. While in some areas of the country you can walk around with the boobies hanging out, flopping around in the open breeze, it's still not socially acceptable for you to do it. And it is illegal, considered to be indecent exposure. All right. There's one thing that women can't do by law that men can. Okay. I'm sorry. Personally, I think that's a good thing. The female breast is still a sexualized part of your body. All right. Yeah, Badger, exactly. Give me the child and I'll give you the man. Yep. Hey, morning, Shio. Glad to see you back, buddy. It's been a while. The students explore the intersecting factors of their own diversity using the identity wheel. Students learn the concept of privilege and explore their own relationship to privilege in journal writing and reflections using the circles of oppression, which helps students to talk about how our factors of diversity determine this is high school students. Remember, this is ninth graders. These are ninth graders. They're not even seniors. These are ninth graders. Finally, students discuss the effects of stereotypes by watching and discussing the video The Lie, which depicts students in elementary, high school class explaining the lies or stereotypes society tells about them and the truth about how they see themselves. I wonder if they would include the fact that it's a lie that white men have privilege over everybody else, or that white men have power over everyone else, or the white men are treated better. I wonder if this professor would accept that as a lie. I really wonder if he would accept that. That's true, Sheil. Hey, TC, how you doing this morning? So here is a course that's been taught throughout the country in various schools since at least 2020. Since at least most likely since 2017 or 2018. The way this Charles Alexander talks. All right. So now we've gone through two classes, two things here. We've got a college professor, college professor at a private university who's been teaching racial justice in his English class. And in researching why is racial justice part of an English class, I came across that article. So where is that other thing at? Don't tell me I accidentally got rid of it. Okay, I will find it again. That's easy enough. Let me give me just a minute here. I must have accidentally closed a tab. Okay, and let's see here. Where's my angry shroom? Because I think I saved it to there. Yes, here it is. Get past the commercial. All right. Now we're jumping. Long way to get there, but we're finally here. Congressional hearings. House Committee on Education and the Workforce holds a hearing on the American education in crisis. Ooh. Well, Shio, I will agree with the first, and I hope I never have to experience the second. All right, so let's come back over here and let's see if the audio plays like it should.
Mr. Bowman, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, that audio come across. I am having difficulties here. Yes, I know I am older than 40. So I'm going to have to do it this way to see if the audio come across.
So much, Madam Chair. Mrs. Gentles, you mentioned the state of Florida in some.
All right, yep, the audio is there. Okay, so let's listen to this guy here.
Of your remarks just then. Do you support the state of Florida's decision to remove AP African American history from its curriculum?
That's not something that I have looked into, and I don't think from a federal perspective that Congress needs to get involved in what a state should or shouldn't teach. I'm not sure if that is the role of that isn't the role of the federal government. But
I'm
that's
asking you your opinion. Do you support the teaching of African American history?
Absolutely.
Okay, now remember what Florida was canceling here in the AP African history class was the critical race theory portion of it. And the gay and lesbian, the AGLBTQA, yada, 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 alphabet soup portion of it. If they want to teach African American history, that's great. Teach African American history. To high school students. You keep the CRT out of it. You keep the alphabet soup mess out of it. Okay? It's that plain and simple.
Support the teaching of African American history. Fourth grade social studies in Virginia has a real emphasis for that.
You also, I'm sorry,
we're
reclaiming my time. Do you also support the teaching of Latino history?
For sure, yeah. This
So
is
you
important.
support the teaching of all history, multicultural history in every American school. You support that.
Right. We need to have a robust and full history standards and lessons and curriculum so that.
Now, the question I've got here is if we are teaching history, okay, why do we have to break it down into African American history, Hispanic history, Latino history, two different things, women's history, gay history? Why do we have to break it down in such? American history is American history. All right. Why do the high schools have to break it down into these individual segments? Now, if colleges want to break it down and focus on a particular group's history within the American experience, then that's wonderful. That's wonderful because that college can do it. All right. That student can voluntarily take that class. That student can voluntarily take that class and pay that professor and yada, yada, yada on up the food chain. But why do we need to do this idea of American history in the public high schools has to be broken down by race, by gender, by ethnic persuasion, by who you want to sleep with and how you want to dress. Okay, that's not American history. Okay, not in my opinion. Remember, this is all about my opinion. And anybody that disagrees with my opinion, you're more than welcome. Hey, I disagree, and I want to go ahead and pop on and talk to you about it, and I'll be more than glad. As long as we keep on subject and we keep it nice, I'll be more than glad. All right.
That all topics are addressed.
So do you support the teaching of queer and gender studies in public schools?
I'm not sure what you mean when you say queer and gender studies. That doesn't sound like something that would be an elementary level, for example, appropriate topic.
What about middle school and high school?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're saying when you're saying queer and gender studies.
So I'm a former educator. I worked in education for 20 years.
Okay. Listen to where this guy's going here.
Was a middle school principal for 10.5 years, and I had students who identified as gay or lesbian or queer, and it was very important for them to feel safe and comfortable and seen and heard and recognized in our school curriculum.
No, it is not necessary. It's safe for them to be safe. Yes, you do not allow people to bully on them. Just because a kid should not be beat up on just because they're gay. All right, you do not allow people to beat up on someone because they're gay, or to bully them, or to harass them, or to pick on them. All right, that means that when that student comes to you and says, "Hey, so and so is bullying on me," you take steps. All right, but you have to confirm that it's actually happening and the degree to which it's actually happening. Because we know in this modern day and age how just looking at someone for 2 seconds too long is considered a microaggression. There are some instances where that student has to just understand not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to want to invite you to their birthday party. They're not going to want to have you come over and sit down at their house and eat, and they're not going to come to your house and have a sleepover with you. You're not going to get asked to join their club or anything else. But that's fine. That's part of growing up. That's part of life. But no, you do not need to be recognized and put up on a pedestal because you're gay. You do not have to see yourself in American history or anywhere else just because you're gay. The school does not have to redo its curriculum just because it's got a gay student in their classroom.
And that helped them to have higher levels of self-esteem, self-worth, and it helped them to thrive academically in my school. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Do you support the teaching and supporting of queer and gender studies in schools?
I honestly am not familiar with a curriculum or a class that would be an appropriate class. Queer.
What about authors? What about authors and books? There are many books who are authored by authors who identify as queer. Many of these books in Florida have been, taken off of bookshelves along.
And they weren't taken off the bookshelves because the teachers or the authors were gay or queer or anything else. They're taken off the bookshelves because they pushed an agenda or were just flat right pornography. Okay? They were taken off the shelves because they were pornography. Not because of the race or the ethnicity or the sexual persuasion of the author. All right? So stop with that lie.
With many other books. Do you support the removal of classroom libraries in Florida or in public schools across the country?
Well, I'm pretty contrary by nature. So when books like To Kill a Mockingbird and other books were.
And remember, who was it that wanted to remove To Kill a Mockingbird? It was people like him that wanted to remove To Kill a Mockingbird, To Kill Huckleberry Finn. They wanted those books taken off the shelves because it offended them. Okay?
Were being brought up as controversial, then I went out and ordered them to make sure that my daughters weren't kept from reading them in their public schools. But when you're talking about schools that specifically direct children to sex apps, or lay out
How many schools?
explicit
So
sexual
reclaiming
instruction,
my
I
time.
don't
I'm
think
sorry.
that's
How many
appropriate.
schools have been identified as teaching this so-called or providing the so-called woke indoctrination agenda? How many schools?
Damn near every school in the country. All right? Are you being, are you asking for an actual number? I'll throw one out there. I'll throw out 100 schools. I'll give you a number if that's what you want. And I will, while I don't have that list of 100 at my fingertips, I will get you a list. All you got to do is research the news and which schools have been in the news for telling parents to shut up when they try to read these books that they're at school board meetings and told that those books are inappropriate for a public setting of adults, but they're being given to the students to read.
So there are examples.
Have you identified a number of schools that are so-called implementing a woke indoctrination agenda? Is there a number?
No, that might be something that the committee.
So there's no number. So in your testimony,
but there's anecdotal evidence.
In your
throughout the
testimony,
country.
you continue to make generalized statements about schools this, parents that, teachers this, but you cannot tell me a number right now of schools that are implementing this sort of curriculum. Let me just reclaim my time. Also in your testimony, you drew a contrast between balanced literacy and phonics. Can you talk to me about that contrast?
Yes, thank you for that question. Balanced literacy.
This guy, you notice how he's shutting her up. He is pushing his own narrative. He is pushing his narrative that all this stuff is necessary. It's necessary to have gender studies. It's necessary to have gay and queer studies. It's necessary to have Black history studies. All this stuff is necessary to have in the schools, but he doesn't consider that woke agenda. Can somebody square that circle for me? Exactly, Neil. Institutions that implement these policies, these programs, these books into our school system. All right. And the state of Florida is leading the country right now and saying we need this crap out of our schools. Now, am I afraid DeSantis is going to take this a step too far? Yes. I'm afraid that he may take this a step too far. I would rather see him not get any chalk on his toes when he comes up to that line. Back off just short of coming up to that line where you go too far, DeSantis. And I'm afraid that in his zeal, he's going to get pushed a little too far. In his anger at um, being accused of things, he may go too far. Or just the other way, and some bureaucrats' zeal to make DeSantis look bad will go too far. Well, if he doesn't want this, then I'm going to pull these to make DeSantis look bad. And I'm going to say it came down from orders from DeSantis, or this is how I interpreted the orders. This is how I interpreted the law. This is how I interpreted the regulations. Well, it's all DeSantis' fault. I mean, he's the one that put these regulations out there. I just interpreted what he said. And then, of course, you know how the media then isn't going to blame this guy and point out this guy had his own agenda. It's all going to be back to DeSantis and everything else. So, yeah, there is going too far in the education system here. And the left knows it. This guy knows it. He's admitted that he's done it in his 20 years as an educator before he got elected to the House. But he won't admit that what he was doing is part of the woke agenda. Even though he's pushing it. He's purposely lying about what it is. This is starting to get too far again. And you know, I'm glad this is happening because that means I'm not having to go back because my grandson's going to be starting school here in 2 years, and my daughter-in-law is not going to homeschool them. But that means I won't have to go to that school and start perusing their books because honestly, my son is a busy man. He is working a lot of hours to support his family. So my way of trying to support him and his family, one of the things I can do is ensure that what's going on in his schools is the best thing for my grandson. And we've already had this conversation. So we'll be doing that. And he knows I'm going to be doing it. And he's glad I'm going to be doing it. And yes, I'm going to be on the list of people that can discuss what's going on in the school with my grandson, about my grandson, with the school administrators. Him and my daughter-in-law have already agreed to that. I asked them if they would. They know that I'll take the time to do it, and that's what they're going to do. But we've got to, everybody, not just the parents, but the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles. We all have to take serious about what's being taught in our schools, being taught to our children. Like somebody said earlier here, all right, let me scroll up here. Who was it that said earlier, give me your child and I'll give you the man? Yeah, Green Badger said it. Give me the child and I'll give you the man. Yep. I'll give you the man. You let me raise your child, and I'll give you the man I want him to be. I'll give you the person I want him to be, not the person you want him to be. So yeah, I took a long way around to get there, but I didn't want to start off with that guy. I wanted to show exactly how bad all this actually is. This is absolutely horrible what they're doing. When you have a sitting House member sit there and lie about what is going on in the schools, what he's done in the schools, misrepresent it, and trying to push a narrative. Now, I'm glad that she pointed out that, hey, she didn't say when you guys on the left, but she pointed out books that the left had tried to ban, and she ordered to make certain her kids could read them. And I mean, now there's nothing there saying that a parent, if you want your kids to be taught this stuff, there's nothing saying you can't teach them that at home. I don't care how wackadoodle it is. I watched a video here not too long ago, a black woman making a video talking about how white people were created in the black people's laboratories. And we were a lab experiment gone wrong. Now, that is really a wackadoodle idea. But if she wants to teach that to her children, that's her perfectly God-given right to do so. It is a complete wackadoodle idea, but hey, she wants to teach her kids that white people are lab creations. I can not agree with it all day long, but hey, she can teach it. I won't allow that to be taught in the schools, though. I don't want that to be taught in the schools. And let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that Project Veritas found a teacher giving extra credit to students for going out to Antifa demonstrations and manning the tables for Antifa. Okay. I have 188 days to turn these kids into radicals. Now, that got a vice principal swearing up and down that he won't hire teachers over a certain age because he doesn't want conservatives in their school. So again, who's most likely to be pushing these crazy ideas, this woke agenda? Is it somebody in their 40s and 50s, or is it somebody in their 20s and 30s? But this guy in the House just won't sit there and admit to it. So, yeah, there's that. Ah, oh, that's a 6-month-old story. I don't care about something from 6 months ago. Uh, Popped up on my screen here. Jimmy Quittle threatening to quit his show. And what it was is last November, some ABC execs asked him to ease up on the Trump jokes. And he said, well, what was it? Kimmel said he was concern was hinted at by executives right around the beginning of this whole Trump thing when he says networks research found he lost half his fan base, maybe more, as he started making jokes about Trump. And they're asking him to say, hey, If you want me to stop making Trump jokes, I'll just go ahead and quit being on your show altogether. What can I, that. All right, this. If you want this article here, let me. Here we go. Here's the article from Utopia about uh, the schools and that's a 2020 article. So 3 years old. So it's been at least 5 years this crap's been going on in the school system. Okay. And the New York Times. New York Times. You know how much I love dealing with journalism classes. I've told you all the stories before, When I was a young man in high school, I wanted nothing more than to be a reporter. Well, not so much a reporter. I wanted to be on the technical end of television broadcasting. I wanted to be the guy running running the cameras, running the control boards, being the director, you know, uh, all that fun stuff. That's where I didn't want to be in front of the cameras. I want to be the guy operating uh, everything, because I knew even then that those people in front of the cameras were nothing more than talking heads. Will not tolerate. New York Times warns its journalists amid criticism of reporting on transgender people. The New York Times is under fire for the second day in a row over its coverage of transgender people. Now it's for a response to the criticism of its coverage of transgender people and warning its own journalists made by the old gray ladies executive. On Wednesday, two very separate yet damning letters were sent to the Times. One is an open letter signed by 200 current and former Time contributors criticizing the paper's coverage of transgender people. It was not only fact-based and chock full of examples, but it took a deep dive into the Times' biased history of poor reporting on LGBTQ people overall. The second open letter came from 100 or more LGBTQ organizations and leaders, including GLAAD and HRC. I have no idea what the hell HRC is. That's Hillary Rodham Clinton, as far as I'm concerned. Also criticizing coverage of transgender. While there's some similarities to both, they were clearly unrelated from very different groups. Wednesday afternoon, the Times sent a statement to several publications that had reported on one or both. It accomplished being both defensive and dismissive. Rather than acknowledging any room for opportunity or growth, rather than welcoming honest criticism and offering to sit down with the LGBTQ peoples or groups, the Times statement chalked up its bias coverage to having a different mission than GLAAD. We understand how GLAAD sees our coverage, but at the same time, we recognize GLAAD's advocacy mission and the Times' journalistic mission are different. The Times is an advocacy group anymore. They haven't been a journalistic mission in 30 years. Probably closer to 40, but 30 that I'm fully aware of and can document if I needed to. And I'm talking going back to the Carter-Reagan administrations. On Thursday, rather than take some time to review his policies or coverage or even a submission, the Times published an opinion piece defending one of the people accused of being anti-transgender, the noted author J.K. Rowling. An opinion piece. This wasn't even a news piece, but an opinion piece. An opinion that some people disagreed with. There's always opinion pieces I disagree with, but it's an opinion piece. Regardless of your opinion of Rowling, regardless of your opinion of her public statements about transgender people, publishing in defense of Rowling was a clear shot across the bow, a definite, if you will, middle finger to the transgender community and everyone at Times contributors who signed a letter that might have jeopardized their careers at the paper of record, along with the 100 LGBTQ organizations. This is a long article here. Let me go ahead and post a link to it if anybody wants to follow up on it later on. But you see how bad this is. These people. Oh, is that too long of a link? Oh no, it gave. Make sure it. Yep. Okay. There we go. And this is, you know, to even allow anybody post an opinion that is not in line with the extreme left is enough to get the New York Times in trouble, even to allow an opinion that disagrees with them, that defends somebody they don't like. Unfreaking believable. And you want us to sit here and honestly believe that you don't believe, you don't want us to understand, you don't want us to know that if you're not on the woke side, you're going to be silenced? That is what's going on out there. And I don't know. It's really this is so bad that I'm having to defend the Times, which I don't like doing. I don't like defending the New York Times. I will give them credit for at least publishing an opinion piece that goes against the LGBTQ GLAD hierarchy, the ones that are pushing these agendas in our schools and everywhere else. But it's not often I can say, something to defend the New York Times about, because they're not a. I quit reading them. I quit reading them as a paper of source, paper of record years ago. You just can't do it. You can't trust what they have in their news articles. But the left, remember, this House member wants to know who is pushing woke ideologies. Who is pushing these woke ideologies in our schools? All right. They always say, let's refer to the experts. Let's refer to the science. Science needs to stop using terms like male, female, mother, and father, researchers say. This article is from last week. Alternative to terms like male and female, mother and father should be sought in science because they assume that sex is binary and heterosexuality is the norm. A group of researchers from the US and Canada suggests. Gender isn't binary. You're either male or female. Yes, on occasion, there are birth defects where you have hermaphrodites, where you have an individual born with sexual gender traits of both. I don't know the exact number of percentage, but God, it's less than 1% of 1%. It's not common. It's a rarity. It's a birth defect. Woke ideology in this science, in the science that is to be taught our children, in the science that will dictate how we approach our lives by the government. Male and female should be instead referred as sperm producing and egg producing. The ecology and evolutionary biology language project said. Meanwhile, father and mother should be labeled parent, egg donor, sperm donor in the scientific field. The group is called on scientific field to use terms that are inclusive and precise. Much of Western science is rooted in colonialism, white supremacy, high patriarchy, and these power structures continue to permeate our scientific culture. Colonialism, white supremacy, and patriarchy. Oh my God. Yes, you've got that African out there that can call down lightning or call down rain. You know, we got those Indian tribes that go out there and do the rain dance, and they're going to cause it to rain. Yes, dancing around in a circle can cause it to rain. Yes. Witch doctor can call down lightning to strike down his foes. Exactly. Neil, they're literally admitting that it's a binary. You got one or the other. You either produce sperm or you produce an egg, one or the other. 1, 2. And you have the rare ones in between that can't produce either. You have the rare people who are infertile. They don't produce sperm at all, or their sperm is dead. You got on occasion you have a woman born who can't produce eggs. Or you got that even rarer case of somebody who's born with sexual organs of both and produces neither, or may produce both. Very, very rare. UBC Assistant Professor Dr. Caitlin Gaynor said the undertaking began from a Twitter conversation between a few people about terminology that's potentially harmful. We reached out to different networks in ecology and evolution that were focused on increasing inclusion and equity. Equity. I'm turning to describe. I hate that word. Every time I see it, I get a headache. Increasing inclusion and equity in the field to rally support for one very specific action. Revising terminology that might be harmful to certain people, particularly from groups who are historically and currently excluded from science. Who is excluded from science? Everybody has got access to science if they want it. Nobody is excluded from science. My God, people. You see this rabbit hole I got sent down here? I watched a house hearing, and a jackass former principal won't admit what he was doing, questioning, saying what it was, saying that never happens, even though he'd been doing it. Then I read a newspaper article about a college professor who is teaching racial justice, and he's pissed off because, well, he's being fired for it. And in researching that, I found that article from 2020. Then the New York Times article, and going even further down this rabbit hole. Now, this article, we are not safe from this woke ideology anywhere. Oh, Badger, you're probably right. Oh, home. Yeah, you're right. Natural lightning would not work very well in home defense project. Researchers have listed 24 harmful terms and alternatives. The group's website lists its top 24 harmful terms, a crowdsourced repository identified by community members with possible alternatives. Primitive and advanced are problematic because they are used derogatorily towards humans or human practices, and also scientifically inaccurate as it implies evolutionary hierarchy, suggests ancestral or derived. Oh my God. It is primitive to think you can dance around in a circle and make it rain. It is primitive to think that you can have a witch doctor stand there and call down lightning. Survival of the fittest could be linked to eugenics, ableism, and social Darwinism. Listen, if it wasn't for science, I wouldn't have lived to be a year old. All right. My body was not fit to survive as it was born. I required corrective surgery within 24 hours of being born, or else I would have died. All right. I would have been one of them kids written off as born with the birth defect and died. All right. No amount of primitive science or actions would have saved me. All right. It was advanced sciences in 1959, advanced that they were at that point, that saved my life. So, yes, there is no primitive stick his hand into my belly and or body and fix whatever needs to be fixed and pull it out with no wounds. Psychic healing, I think, is what they called it back in the day. Survival of the fittest. If you are fit, you survive. If you're not fit, you don't. If you're in a position, the way we live today, right now, survival of the fittest is who has the most money. You tell me a millionaire isn't more fit to survive in today's age than a man with no money. All right? You got somebody with no money, no source of income, no government tit to suck off of. Tell me how they're going to survive. They're not going to survive very well. Yet you got a millionaire out there, he's going to survive quite well. But you take them same two people, put them out in a jungle with no grocery stores. It may be just the reverse. That millionaire too damn soft to survive. He's not physically fit enough to survive. So survival of the fittest is a proper way to look at it. It's not eugenics. It's all right. And social Darwin, it depends on the social. Hey? In the society of we have in the United States, a millionaire is much more fit to survive than a poor man. But you put them out in the jungle, that poor man in that social environment, that poor man. So yeah, ableism are who are and if you are physically able to work, you can make more money. Or if you're smart enough to where you got the brain power to sell your product, come up to sell your thoughts, then you're going to make more. Your thoughts are going to make more money than that of somebody whose brain is not going to be very coherent. Hey Rex, yeah, good morning. Yeah, James Randi, that's who I was thinking of. Randy, yeah, the psychic surgery. Yeah, what a con artist that was. I mean, I hadn't thought of that psychic surgery in decades. What is natural selection other than survival of the fittest? Even citizen science is troublesome because it can be harmful to non-citizens. So the EEB language project urged using participant science or community science. As particular words that are harmful and the alternatives can change over time. People can submit suggestions online and have their voices heard. Oh, 1984. Think of it's 1984 all over again. It's that book. Words don't no longer have meanings because that meaning can change day by day. No, no, no. Get my tongue off my eye teeth so I can see what I'm saying. These guys, they just absolutely frustrate and irritate me to no end. How can you expect to pass down ideas, thoughts, traditions from generation to generation if you're changing words and the meanings of the words? It's like the phrase well regulated in the Second Amendment. At the time, well regulated did not mean regulated by the federal government. It meant well working, like your watch was well regulated. Your watch was well regulated. It clicked every second on the second. It kept time perfectly. A well regulated, a perfectly working unit. A perfectly working militia. A militia that worked well together. That was a well regulated militia. All right. Not regulated in the form of laws handed down by the government, but a unit that worked well together. Okay. That is what a well regulated meant back in the day, back in 1770s and the 1780s when the Constitution and the amendments were written. Let's see. I'm going to find these. Okay, let's see if I can find. Okay, all right, here we go. The top 24 harmful terms. Let's take a look at some of these harmful terms these idiots come up with. Alien. Okay, hateful term, or excuse me, harmful term. Alien, non-native, exotic, invasive. It could be xenophobic, not anti-immigrant, and militaristic. Use non-endemic species, newly arrived species, non-introduced species, or nuisance species. Oh, nuisance species, that's not going to last long. That's not a good word. Because nuisance in of itself is a bad word, has negative connotations. Blind, double blind, plant blindness, a disability metaphor. Replacement term awareness. So when I'm doing a blind study or a double blind study, so I'm supposed to do a single awareness, single non-awareness, double non-awareness study. People, citizen science is a harmful term. Citizen science is harmful to non-citizens who are excluded by that language. Okay. Feminize or masculinize. Femininize implies that feminine and masculine are biological traits rather than social constructs. Do you have boobs and a vagina? You're a female. Do you have balls and a penis? You're a male. Female, male. Hey, they are biological traits. Sorry, it's not a social construct. Gypsy, racial slur use to incite violence against the Romani people. Uh, at one time, yes, but and I don't even hear that many people use the term gypsy anymore, much anymore, except maybe in Europe. Uh, but then, I mean, I've heard people here. I'm just a gypsy, meaning they travel, you know, they just travel around the country. They don't have a single place they live, you know. Uh, the van lifers, for the most part, people who live in their vans or RVs or mobile homes. Yeah, duck dog, you're right. The Irish tinkerers. Spongy moth. What the hell is a spongy moth? Where in the hell did they come up? All right, I've got to look up spongy moth. What in the hell? SPONGYMOTA. Spongy moth. Native to Europe, Asia, and North Africa, the spongy moth is an invasive pest of North American forests, destroying the leaves of hundreds of trees. So you're going to call people who travel, going to call them a spongy moth, which is a spongy moth destroys the leaves of hundreds of trees and shrub species and causes hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage. Wow. I think I'd rather be called a gypsy. Man or woman. Highly anthropomorphic. I'll get my mouth to working. Anthropomorphic. Biases towards men or male traits. Male or female, human. All right. Woman. Can we get rid of the idea that woman is lesser than man, that's meant to be an insult? Uh, okay. Um, okay, let's see if I can find this here. Shoot, where does it come from? Here we go. Okay, a wife and man. Okay, I'm trying to find it. No, that's not it. What it? What? It, okay, I can't remember the damn word where you use for looking up the history of a term. All right. Anyway, names after racists, eugenics, or colonizers. They hold up problematic figures of noteworthy, somebody to remember or celebrate. Use indigenous names, local names, name morphology, remove names from concepts. So, in other words, here, well, since only white people can be colonizers, so if anything is named after a white person, you have to remove that name. So, use local names, which, if you look at most local names, they are named after somebody. The same way with indigenous names, they are named after somebody or some event. Okay. Survival of the fittest. Yeah, we went over that. Gender, use sex. So now they're saying sex and gender are the same thing. I thought sex and gender were two different things. Hermaphrodite. Okay, derogatory term used to cause harm to intersex and trans individuals. Trans is not a hermaphrodite. You are not a hermaphrodite if you're a transsexual. All right. Indian, a discriminatory racist term used to describe indigenous people. Use indigenous. Well, even most people that you call indigenous weren't indigenous. They traveled here from somewhere else. Male and female went over. Well, mother and father, we went over that. Noose. A noose is different from a lasso, you idiots. Completely different knots are used between a noose and a lasso. The lack of knowledge that these people have. We went over primitive and advanced, race, population, subspecies, ecotype. Oh, they're virgin, call them unmated. It's a social construct that reinforces heteropatriarchal norms. If you're a virgin, called but unmated. Oh my God. You're changing terms just to change terms. Now, wait a second. Don't use colonization or colonizer, but right up here, you just use colonizer. Established early successional species, discovery, identified, described, harem, mating group, or polygamy. Oh, yeah, this is something new here. If you're buying a house, there's no longer a master bedroom. But a lot of retail agents, or a lot of agents now, real estate agents, they now call it a primary bedroom. They won't use the term master bedroom. Rape equates rape with reproductive strategy rather than a violent and traumatic act, which can lead to dangerous misconceptions as a natural behavior. And the use of the term forces survivors to be confronted with it, which is traumatic. Now they want us to call it forced copulation. No, I can't do this. Slave or master, slave making ants, normalizes slavery and colonial. Yeah, that's even in computers now. They're trying, and electronics are trying to get you away from using that term. Yeah, Green Badger, this new speak. But this new speak is what they want taught in the schools. Remember, use the science. Remember that guy, that House member who was a high school principal. This is what he wants. But he wants you to tell him whether or not how many woke schools there are in the United States. How many schools are there that are going to be using these terms? Huh? You tell me. How many high schools are going to be using these terms? How many high school science teachers are going to start using these terms? How many books are going to be using those terms in the books that our kids are taught out of? This is unfreaking believable. Struggle snuggle, yeah. Oh, Lord have mercy on us all. You see how deep this rabbit hole, you know, people made fun of that commercial at the Super Bowl about people being forced down rabbit holes. The problem was is I identified with that. I really and truly identified with that because I ended up look at this rabbit hole I just got jumped down to this morning. Oh, the Larry Loop or Honda Nod is a. Oh, I've got to look up a Honda Nod. I'm not familiar with that one. Forms the eye for constructing lasso. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. A noose and a lasso are two complete different things. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get a come on LASSO versus noose. Okay. And share screen. Here we go. If you did not know what a noose, there is the noose. Okay. Traditionally, it was done with 13 twists. Okay. That is a noose. Here is a lasso. There's the lasso there. Real simple. They're not the same knot. That's not a complete noose because it doesn't have the, like I said, traditionally 13, but that's beside the point. It still works. So please forgive me for trying to throw some facts into these people's well. Oh, God, these people make the, and remember, we had a high school teacher. I'm assuming she was high school. She may have been elementary, but most likely high school teacher who just recently, and she has privatized her account to where nobody can see it, posted a video of herself proclaiming that she, with her master's degree, is much better suited to determine what we as mere parents should be taught to our children. She with her master's degree. Okay. Oh, did I? Please tell me I saved this. No, I didn't save it. Can I open there? There's an image. The Michigan Democrats. Let me see if I can find this image. Come on, open up, open up. Thank you. Come down here. Close, close. Drive D. Where's my, there's that. Michigan Democrats. Or, or did I, was it? It didn't start with. Parent, here we go. All right. Now, this is a tweet by the Michigan Democrats, which they later pulled down. And when they pulled it down, they apologized for it after, but only because they got so much crap over it. Not sure where this parents should control what is taught in the schools because they are our kids is originating. But parents do have the option to send their kids to a hand-selected private school at that if this is what they desire, at their own expense if this is what they desire. The purpose of a public education in a public school is not to teach kids only what the parents want them to be taught, but what society, it is to teach them what society needs them to know. The client of the public school is not the parent, but the society. Okay. That is what they want. Oh, the client of the school is the public, is not the parent, but the entire community. All right. The public. That is what, and then the Democrats got so much pushback on that that they withdrew that tweet. But that's what the Democrats push. That's what a lot of these teachers push, that they know better than us, our parents. Now, am I qualified to teach a lot of these classes? I'm not that great of a mathematician. I can teach basic math up through basic algebra. That would be no problem. Basic algebra. Thank you much. All right. But you want to get into trig and calculus and the rest of that? I'm sure there's other parents out there who are a lot better at it than me. I could easily teach basic electronics and electrical theories. Okay. Exactly, Duck Dog. As a property tax player, I want children who can go out and get a job, pay property tax of their own to support the schools. And Duck Dog, I pushed my son not to go to college. Not that he's stupid, but I didn't have the money to pay $50, $60, $80,000 of college for him. But I could afford to teach him, to send him through the local technical school, and I was willing to pay for it. I paid for him. He wanted to try being security, So that was a $2,000 course. I paid that $2,000 for him to go through that course to get his security license in the state of Florida. That was no problem whatsoever. I paid for that. And if he'd wanted to go back to another tech school and learn HIVAC, which I wanted him to do because HIVAC people are always earning money. As long as you have electricity, you're going to have people out there in the HIVAC community earning cash. Yeah, you're right about that. School of Hard Knocks. There are some people who just fail that school, though. They never learn. But yeah, we've got we've got things. It still relates, all comes down to this stuff that we've got to worry about. These are all things that we need to have. We need to be concerned about our kids being taught. We really do. We need to be concerned about what these schools are doing to our children. And that starts off with a House member sitting there lying his ass off to push his narrative, knowing full well that even he was pushing the woke agenda. He was bragging about it there in his schools. And then sitting there saying, well, you don't know how many, you can't give me a number. Well, it's basically unknown, but I would say 95% of the school public education pushes woke agenda. I'm not going to say 100%. I'll say 95%. And I'll feel comfortable doing that. I'll feel comfortable saying 95% of the schools are pushing a woke agenda. That's no problem. And I dare you to prove me wrong. Now I'll put the onus on you to prove that I'm wrong about it. Because I can go to almost any school and find it. I can find it in my own school right here. Stuff that the schools say that, well, we're required by so and so to teach this, yada yada yada. Okay, that's fine. You say you're required to teach that. We'll talk about that later on, okay? Anyway, um, I am. That is about all I've got for this morning because anything else I get into is going to run me much longer than the 15 minutes more that I really want to get involved into. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other open tabs here. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I've got enough to go on all week here about. So we'll talk about this later. We'll say about Biden being in the Ukraine. Yeah, couldn't get him to go to Ohio, but we can get him to go to Ukraine. How's that for a kick in the ass, Ohio? And Mike DeWine, who? What do you mean? With Trump got Biden and FEMA saying what happened in Ohio at that train wreck, no big deal. Doesn't they're turning down and refusing federal aid for it. Then Trump says he's going to go up there, and within a few hours of Trump saying he's going to go up there, all of a sudden FEMA pops out. If the governor wants it, all he has to do is ask. FEMA's there to supply him whatever he feels he needs. And then what does Mike DeWine stand there and do? Well, right now I can't think of anything. How about getting some people out there taking a look at those lakes, taking a look at those rivers and creeks where the water's absolutely been positively poisoned? And if the water's been poisoned, how about the land around them being poisoned? How about getting FEMA out there to take a look at some of this stuff? Hey, morning, Becca. DeWine, you're an idiot. You really are. FEMA is one of the few organizations within the federal government that I think is a necessary evil, Becca. All right. As a collective, I mean, when a natural disaster or disaster like what just happened there in Ohio happens, we do need to have the federal government in there to lend aid because that is way beyond a state's, when, especially when it reaches beyond what a single state can handle in and of themselves, something that they would not normally be, prepared to deal with, because they'll be able to have the experts on touch to know which experts to get in contact with. Hey, morning, JoJo. Yeah, Badger. It's a shame that nobody can search Air Force One and Joe's luggage when he brings it back from the Ukraine, because you can easily fit a couple $1 million in a suitcase. And how many extra suitcases will Joe be bringing back with him? Yeah, FEMA declined claims here when Michael came through. And some of them I agreed with, some of them I strongly disagreed with. But yeah, it's you know, well, sure it's not going to be Parmesan cheese there, Sean. But anyway, ladies and gents, I do want to thank you for joining me this morning. This was an impromptu. Well, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I made breakfast for the wife before she went to work. She loves it when I do that for her. She thinks it's great. But I want y'all to please enjoy the day, have fun, relax, and I should, all things considered, I should be back tomorrow morning. But once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I'm still trying. I'm still going to work on trying to do dual streaming on the Rumble. Uh, I may try to work on that some more this afternoon. I think I've got some time in my agenda. All right, but everybody, have a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Be with the ones you love and love the ones that you're with.